Oh, hamburgers. Poor Leopold Butters Stotch can never catch a break. When he's not being grounded and sent to his room for the most minuscule things, he's likely getting manipulated by Cartman, being the guinea pig for some sort of scheme, or anything in between. But what are the most painful, horrifying, and traumatizing things to happen to Butters? I'm Kristijan with Wicked Binge, and this is the worst things to happen to Butters. Bad to awful. We'll start out with breaking up with his girlfriend. In the episode Raisins, all the boys take Stan to the titular restaurant to meet some girls after Wendy breaks up with him. All the employees are younger girls that simply put on a flirtatious act to titillate guys. Butters, however, thinks their waitress, Alexis, actually has a genuine crush on him, with her complimenting and touching him. In actuality, though, she has no feelings for him and only continues to be kind for money. Butters remains oblivious to this, giving her large tips and a present, and mistakes her inviting him back to the restaurant as a date. It's when he takes his parents to meet her that Alexis drops the obvious: they were never together. This leaves Butters heartbroken and crying in the rain, but as he tells Stan, the feeling is more bittersweet to him than it is sad, calling it a beautiful sadness. It's pretty obvious as to why this takes the bottom spot. Nothing particularly horrible nor traumatizing happened here, and Butters took this quite well. Next is becoming obsessed with an adult film. In the episode The Return of the Fellowship of the Ring of the Two Towers, Randy and Sharon ask the boys to give a tape of The Lord of the Rings they rented to Butters' parents. In the boys' absence, the two attempt to watch an adult film, just to find out that the two tapes have been switched on accident, and that Butters is watching the adult film. It turns out that Butters is actually enjoying the film, thinking it's Lord of the Rings. So when the boys are instructed to take it back to the video store, Butters becomes determined to get it back for himself, going full Gollum mode. Once they reach the video store, Butters has followed them there. He's all dirty and has just gotten more insane, not letting go of the tape, and is perfectly okay with falling into the drop box with it. This gets this spot because, like the previous entry, Butters wasn't particularly harmed in this situation and was pretty happy despite the circumstances. Next we have getting stuck with Cartman. In super fun time, the class takes a field trip to Pioneer Village, and Mr. Garrison instructs everybody to hold hands with the partner and not let go until they get back on the bus. As luck would have it, Cartman and Butters get paired up together, and the former, getting bored, sees a super fun time center next door and drags Butters over. Butters keeps holding Cartman's hand to follow the rule, but is less than thrilled while Cartman is having the time of his life. As they're about to go back, they see cop cars, thinking that the police are searching for them, when in reality they're trying to stop a hostage situation at Pioneer Village. So, to sneak back, they try to walk across a traffic light, still holding hands, just to get stuck. Eventually, they jump onto a moving bus, jump the fence back to the village, and even help stop the hostage situation. While this did have a happy ending, there was still quite the sticky situation toward the end, which gives it a higher placement. Now we're moving on to having to fake a disfigurement. In Freak Strike, after seeing a girl with a disfigurement get a prize on the Vukovic show, the boys decided to pretend Butters has one so he could get on the show and they too can get a prize. Butters gets a fake pair of testicles glued onto his chin and is told by the other disfigured people in the green room that they hate fakes, and so Butters is scared that he'll be found out when they tell him a story about how they murdered one. He successfully pulls off the ruse and gets to go on a golf course right then and there, much to the chagrin of Cartman, Kyle, and Stan. Once back home, the disfigured people come to Butters' house to invite him on a strike against the network for taking the limelight away from them, having moved on to out-of-control kids. After they hijack the studio screen with a video message, the audience leaves the studio, and Cartman, having just disguised himself as a bratty teenage girl to be on Maury, rips the testicles off Butters' chin for taking him out of the spotlight. Unexpectedly, the disfigured people go after Cartman, thinking Butters is authentic. Despite being humiliated, things turn out quite well for Butters. Too bad his parents arrive and ground him at the last minute, of course. Up next is being visited by a mummy. In the episode Tegrity Farm's Halloween Special, Butters is collecting the stamps located at each exhibit in the museum. The last one is at the mummy exhibit, but he's told by the old farmer that the stamp carries a curse. Butters isn't fazed by his warning and puts it in his stamp book anyway. This leads to the mummy barging into his room in the middle of the night and destroying his stuff. The mummy randomly gives him a Fitbit, but when Butters says that he already has one, it further destroys his room and then leaves. The next morning, the cops show up to Butters' house to tell him that the mummy went on a rampage through town because his feelings got hurt over Butters not accepting his gift. Unfortunately for Butters, he has to pay for half the damages caused and is given a summons to appear in court. Throughout the episode, the mummy attacks people in town and it keeps blaming Butters for motivating it to do so. Next is having to take Biggie Smalls to LA. In Hell on Earth 2006, the boys try out a Bloody Mary-esque ritual that can summon Biggie Smalls. When no one is around, Butters does it himself and actually succeeds succeeds in summoning the late rapper. The problem is, Satan is holding a massive party in LA and Butters is forced to take Biggie there. While they're on the plane, Biggie is summoned by Kyle and the other boys, and later Randy, leaving Butters all by himself. Thankfully, Butters manages to summon him while in LA using a woman's compact mirror, and they have fun at Satan's party together. Not only was Butters, well, a young kid, mind you, forced by Biggie Smalls to take him on a plane ride at gunpoint in his pajamas, but he was also left alone there for quite some time. Moving on to being manipulated by Dr. Janice next. In the episode City Sushi, Butters gets a psychiatric evaluation after being accused of starting a fight between City Walk and City Sushi. The psychiatrist, Dr. Janice, diagnoses Butters with multiple personality disorder, even though it's just him playing around like a normal kid. Dr. Janice, on the other hand, appears to be the one with MPD, and uses his various personalities to make Butters appear that he's the unwell one, making him try to steal jewelry. Oh, and let's not forget, he peed on him and punched him multiple times while he was asleep the night prior. Fortunately, Butters eventually brings Dr. Janice to justice once he learns that his strongest personality is that of City Walk owner Luka. While this had another happy ending, Butters went through worse here than he did in the previous entries, which is why we're placing it here. Next is getting lost as a Mexican. In the episode The Last of the Mexicans, Butters gets lost when playing Texans versus Mexicans with the others, playing on the side of the Mexicans. While walking on the side of the road at night, he gets hit by a car, and the couple driving brings him to their house, making him do housework for them. Later, when they think Butters isn't happy, they take him to a Mexican restaurant where he can be with his own kind. However, going by the name Mantequilla, he becomes a national hero among the Mexican people, bringing them a sense of pride for their country, which makes them return home. Butters eventually becomes homesick and ventures home, but not before quickly outsmarting an angry Cartman who didn't want to lose the game the boys started days prior. While being a hero to an entire nation is awesome, we think that having to endure miles of walking and hours of hard labor after being hit by a car is worse than what Butters has had to go through with the previous entries. Up next is thinking the world has ended. In Casa Bonita, Kyle is about to have his birthday at Cartman's favorite restaurant, Casa Bonita. Kyle can bring 3 friends, and he ends up choosing Butters to go along with Stan and Kenny. Absolutely livid that he wasn't invited to go, Cartman convinces Butters that a giant meteor the size of Wyoming is about to hit Earth in 4 hours, and he locks him in Jimbo's bomb shelter so he could go in Butters' place. However, as they're about to leave, Butters' parents come over to say that he's missing, and the party's called off so they can help look for him. Soon after, a full-on missing persons search begins, and when the police say that they'll search the bomb shelters, Cartman gets Butters to hide in an abandoned fridge, saying that radioactive cannibals are everywhere. Eventually ending up at the dump, Butters thinks it's what's left of society and attempts to rebuild everything, but is told that everything is okay when a garbage worker arrives. This is the first entry where everything Butters goes through is bad. All of it. With no real happy ending. With this being the least bad in this range, though it gets this spot. Next is accidentally killing people. In the episode You Got F'd in the A, Stan assembles a team of South Park's best dancers to compete against a group of kids from Orange County. Hearing that Butters was once Colorado's state tap dancing champion, Stan asks him to join, but Butters runs to his room screaming as memories of a horrific incident that happened when he was in the finals come back to him. His shoe had flown off, hitting a stage light, and leading to a chain reaction that left 8 people dead and Butters soaked in blood. Despite this, he joins at the last minute and the same incident happens again, killing the entire opposition. This is quite obviously a scarring event that gave Butters PTSD, and it didn't help at all that it happened all over again. Next, we have almost becoming Paris Hilton's pet. In stupid, spoiled horror video playset, Paris Hilton arrives in town and soon comes across Butters, wanting him as her new pet after her dog had just killed itself. She dresses him in a bear costume and refers to him as Mr. Biggles, and she offers his parents $200 million for him. However, they want $250 million in cash. Much to Butters' horror, they tell Butters that if he wants to stay, he'll have to make all that money himself and suggest he take up coal mining like his grandfather. Butters' parents eventually strike the $250 million deal with Paris Hilton, and Butters is brought into the limo with her. But he flees when he sees all the gruesome ways in which all of Paris' other pets have killed themselves. Fortunately, Butters is in the clear when Paris gets defeated by Mr. Slave in the competition, but is unsurprisingly grounded by his dad for not nabbing them their cash reward. Almost being sold off is bad enough, but when you think of all the additional horrible things he would have endured had he gone with Paris, it's even worse, because of that uncertainty we're placing this here. Next up we have being locked in the basement. In the episode Margarine, the boys have Butters dress up as a girl to steal the girls' future-telling device at Heidi's slumber party. First though, they fake Butters jumping off a tall building to his death by dressing a dead pig up as him and throwing it head off. Once Butters' job at the slumber party is done, he returns home, and when his parents see him alive, they think he's a demon and chain him up in the basement. They also bring a saleswoman to the basement and kill her so that Butters can feed on her. I'm sorry if we sound like a broken record at this point, but there are much worse things going forward, so this is going here. Up next is getting beaten up by his grandmother. In the episode Butterballs, Butters is eating lunch in the cafeteria with the black eye and tells the boys that he got it from a bully. Turns out, the bully is his own grandmother who is there when he gets home. She is friendly and speaks with a sweet demeanor while his parents are around, but while his parents are out of the room, she starts physically and verbally abusing Butters. When an anti-bullying spokesperson arrives, Butters' grandmother thinks that Butters was the one who brought him to the school, so as revenge she attempts to put a urinal puck in her grandson's mouth and even threatens to kill him if he narcs on her again. Of course, she puts on her fake friendly voice once Mr. Adler walks into the bathroom. That night at the dinner table, Butters continues to endure his torture as his grandmother stabs his leg with a fork and sticks a booger in his food. Later though, he gains the courage to confront his grandmother with his Professor Chaos persona, just to find out that she too has a supervillain persona, and she bites down on his arm. After a confrontation with Dr. Oz, Butters finally gains enough bravery to properly tell his grandmother off. When he managed to stand up to his grandmother in the end, Butters still got bullied by one of his own family members, which is a very real issue in the real world, let alone in South Park. This is right in the middle of the list because it's awful, but not extremely life-threatening. Next is having to hold his breath. In the episode Osama bin Laden has farty pants, as a result of paranoia that terrorists will release toxic chemicals into the air, everyone is wearing gas masks. Everyone except Butters, that is. So the boys tell him to hold his breath as an alternative. As they wait in line to get on the bus while Officer Barbrady checks their bags for weapons, Butters becomes gray in the face. Once everyone is inside the bus, Butters collapses and is left face down in the snow. This is the first entry in which Butters could have very easily lost his life, and that will be the case for nearly all other entries going forward, because this is the least severe. We're placing it here. Now we have being forced to keep a gun in his mouth. In Faith Healing, a professor is brought to South Park Elementary to teach the kids about the dangers of memeing. After a fight breaks out between the boys and another group of kids over a disagreement, the professor uses a loaded revolver as a comparison to memeing. Of course, he gives the gun to Butters and makes him put it in his mouth to set an example for the rest of the class. If that weren't bad enough, Butters stays in the classroom for the rest of the episode with the gun still in his mouth, and even almost falls asleep with it there. We don't see what happens to Butters after this one, but it's still horrendous nonetheless. Next is almost drowning. In the aptly named Butters' very own episode, his parents' anniversary is coming up, and Butters is asked by his mother to spy on his dad to find out what his gift for her will be. Upon finding out that her husband was engaging in homosexual activities, she goes insane. In her state of insanity, she drives Butters to a pier, where she puts the car in neutral as she gets out, leaving the scene as the car goes into the river. Instead of sinking though, the car gets carried away by the river's current until it hits a rock, and Butters eventually returns home. We're placing this ahead of the previous entry because we think drowning is a worse way to go in our honest opinion, but one thing we're just baffled at is how Butters was having fun throughout this whole ordeal. Up next is getting a homemade liposuction. In the episode Jared Has AIDS, Jared Fogle comes to South Park to talk about how he lost weight by eating Subway sandwiches. When the boys visit him, they find out he's a fraud who actually uses a dietitian and a personal trainer. Cartman then gets the idea to partner with City Walk for a similar campaign where Butters gains 50 pounds and then loses it, claiming a Chinese food diet helped him lose all that weight. The boys get Butters fattened up with the help of Chef, but when exercising doesn't do anything, a homemade DIY liposuction is the only option left, apparently. They then put Butters on a table, make an incision, and stick a tube inside of it, making the fat drain out. And of course, things only get worse for the poor kid when his parents ground him. This just evades the final 6 because of how it's not on as much of a grand scale as these upcoming ones. Next is getting trapped in Imagination Land. In the Imagination Land trilogy, Butters is brought to the titular world along with Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Jimmy. When Imagination Land is attacked by terrorists, Butters is left behind while the other boys manage to escape, and he's even held at gunpoint to deliver the terrorists' message to the US government. When the evil imaginary characters are released, Butters is taken to the Council of 9, the most highly regarded characters in all the land, and they come to the conclusion that he's the key to stopping the chaos. Since Butters is real, he has the power to imagine anything into existence, and is tasked in bringing back Santa Claus, who was killed in the terrorist attack. After a couple failed attempts, he eventually brings Santa Claus back, and from there, Butters' powers only become stronger as he imagines up more fighters and artillery. However, just as the battle is won, a nuclear bomb is dropped on Imagination Land, but Butters just imagines it back. This whole massive ordeal was without a doubt extremely traumatizing for him, and maybe even painful since he had to endure all those explosions. Not to mention, he still gets grounded by his parents despite being the savior of everyone's imagination nations and the world. Starting off the top 5 is being grounded for years. Post-COVID, the return of COVID, reveals that Butters was left grounded in his room for over 16 years when his parents never returned home from a movie. He was put in solitary confinement for much of his adult life after learning about NFTs and destroying many people's lives by convincing them to invest. But that's a whole other can of worms that we won't touch with a 10-foot pole. This put a huge toll on Butters' mental health, for sure. And this almost got the gold, but we, in good conscience, had to only place it here, and I think you'll see why. Up next is getting stabbed. In Grounded Vindaloop, Cartman makes Butters believe that he's using an Oculus Rift headset and is in virtual reality, so that he can screw with him. Butters eventually gets overconfident, and after satisfyingly punching his dad in the balls, he goes on a rampage through the town, which ends in him getting stabbed by a prostitute. The sheer fact that he ends up in the hospital is bad enough, but this gets a higher placement because this was something he brought on himself, despite being under Cartman's influence. The Bronze Medal of Awful goes to getting beaten up by Trent. In the episode Preschool, the boys catch wind of Trent Boyette, the toughest kid from their preschool class, being released from juvie, and he's determined to get revenge on them for framing him for setting the classroom on fire. Butters' response is to hide in his room. Naturally, his parents kick him out of the house and lock the door, forcing him to go outside and play. When Trent arrives, Butters frantically knocks on the door and yells to be let back in, just for him to get beaten up so badly by Trent that he ends up in the hospital. Butters ends up in a worse state here than he did in the previous entry, and since he did nothing to deserve this one, this gets the bronze. The Silver Medal of Awful goes to having to speak for Cartman. In The Death of Eric Cartman, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny decide to start ignoring Cartman when he tries to talk to them. This makes Cartman think that he's dead and his spirit is currently in purgatory, with no one able to see nor hear him. No one except for Butters, that is, who's the only one to acknowledge him. Cartman believes that the only way for him to move on to the next life is to have Butters apologize to everyone on his behalf. When this doesn't work, Butters makes a list of Cartman's many sins and gives gift baskets to all the people Cartman has wronged. Of course, this doesn't work either, and Cartman destroys Butters' room in a fit of rage. Butters' parents come in and call a psychiatrist, who diagnoses him with dementia and schizophrenia. If things couldn't get any worse, which they certainly can, he's taken to the mental institute where he's probed for 14 hours. Cartman breaks Butters out, and they go to see a psychic who suggests that God has kept Cartman on Earth to stop some kind of crisis. When they see on the news that a hostage situation is unfolding, Cartman believes that this is the event he's destined to stop. So he goes inside the building and moves the furniture around, baffling the robbers, while Butters frees the hostages. Once the whole ordeal is over, all the other boys come over and commend Cartman for what he did, making him realize that he, in fact, wasn't dead the whole time. Poor Butters not only gets blamed, but he's also brought back to the hospital. The main thing here that gives this entry the silver medal is the probing. We all know what Cartman went through in the very first episode, and it was not pretty, to say the least. But Cartman didn't go through all that for 14 hours. Finally, we're giving the gold medal of awful to taking a shuriken to the eye. In the episode Good Times with Weapons, the boys obtain martial arts weapons at a local flea market and go around town pretending that they're ninja, complete with the weird anime art style. In response to the boys not letting him play with them, Butters dons his Professor Chaos persona and fights in a battle with them. However, this all comes to a screeching halt when one of Kenny's shuriken finds itself in Butters' right eye. The boys don't want it to take him to the hospital because people will find out that they've been playing with weapons and attempt to get the shuriken out themselves, to no avail. They then get the brilliant idea of disguising Butters as a dog so the vet can take care of the injury. After the boys battle Craig and his gang, Butters wanders off and eventually ends up at the hospital, where he's then taken to the animal shelter just to escape his cage. Finally, just as the auction is going on and Cartman walks on the stage naked, Butters too walks on stage and collapses. You all probably saw this one coming, and it sticks in our heads for a reason. Butters went through absolute hell, getting gouged by a weapon, bleeding profusely, and then having dog fur get glued on him on top of all that. No wonder this gets the gold medal of awful. But let us know in the comment section if you agree with our ranking and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos, but most importantly, stay wicked.